All right. Renny Harlin, great action filmmaker,
Mm-hmm.
has made, The Long Kiss Goodnight. It's just, I go back to that every year or so and watch it. It's just a fun movie.
Mm-hmm.
And Die Hard 2, Deep Blue Sea. So he's known, he's known for a particular kind of big studio action movie. But his new film, 5 Days of War, which is now on Blu-ray, DVD, and on demand, is a different creature altogether. It's kind of a political action film in a way, and it traces the Russian-Georgian conflict and war reporters' duties in that. Stars Andy Garcia, Val Kilmer's in it. You can get it on all those formats right now. It's available now. Here's Renny to tell us all about that. And he was a nice guy, and he likes Movie Geeks.
Awesome.
Renny Harlin's a fan of Movie Geeks. That's awesome.
Dude, that's awesome.
And don't think I didn't leave that quote in there in this interview when he says that.
Okay.
All right. Here's Renny Harlin.
Thank you so much. And I have to also tell you that I can't imagine how amazing it would have been when I was, a teenager or in my early 20s when I was in Finland, if there had been, first of all, if we had internet, but if there had been, things like Movie Geeks United and stuff like that, because it's just like, I look at your site and all this stuff, and it's like I would have eaten this up. It's just so great that there is this kind of stuff.
First of all, I read a New York Times piece on your film recently, and I read an interesting quote from you where you said you wanted to find a project that would allow you to look at yourself in the mirror. And I guess, first of all, my first question is, why did you feel that way, and what about 5 Days of War spoke to you about this new direction you wanted to go?
Yeah, well, I felt like I had spent now, over 20 years making movies, and I loved making them, and, a lot of people saw them, but they were mostly popcorn entertainment, which is okay. Mm-hmm. But I felt like it was time for me to sort of grow up a little and look in the mirror and say, like, okay, I've been given this awesome opportunity to do this stuff, and now I should do something that actually means something and gives people something back and does something good for somebody. And, without sounding too much like a charity case, I just felt like I needed that for myself. And so I was looking for a topic. It could have been many things. It could have been a beautiful love story, or it could have been about many topics. But when I heard about these producers planning to put together a movie about this war, I remembered having read about it in the news just less than a year before, and it rang very familiar to me in a sense that I grew up in Finland, which in those days was in the shadow of Soviet Union, a small country, certain tensions there, certain threats. And now here's the story of Georgia, which is a small country on the Black Sea, beautiful Mediterranean country, used to be under Soviet rule, now an independent country next to Russia. And this tragic war happens, and I just somehow it just clicked on me that this is exactly the story I want to tell, and I want to try to make a commercially viable film that would reach people who, on the surface they might just like action and a lot of explosions and exciting stuff, but it might get them emotionally hooked and more involved and really get this message out of one of these wars, which, as we know, many of them are being fought today all around the world, and we hear snippets in the news, but that's about it.
Well, here's a fascinating aspect for me of embarking on a project like this that tells a kind of a highly politicized story from primarily one point of view. How do you prevent it from going over into propaganda? Was that a concern?
That was definitely a concern, and when I first went to Georgia, I was very unclear about the chain of events that had happened in this war. Where these conflicts are always very confusing, and I'm working on another movie that has to do with these kind of issues, and I talk to experts, whether they are from Pentagon or from anywhere, and everybody says the same thing. Like in today's war zones, most of the time you have no idea who's who and who's doing what, and that's why we read these, stories of friendly fire and stuff like that, because people are just so unclear where everybody is and what they are doing. And in this case, I wanted to base the facts of the war on my research, which I did in Georgia, and I did on websites, on UN and EU and human rights websites, and get the story right. And more I did research and talked to people and read about it, it became very clear what the timeline of the events was and how everything progressed. And so I made that the skeleton of the film, and then I embellished that with stories that I heard from local people and international reporters who had been there, what they had seen, and created composite characters and grouped events together to create a fictional film. Because obviously this is not a documentary. It's not trying to be a documentary. It's one point of view of this war, and I'm sure other people could come up with other point of views. But to me, this was the truth about how the war took place, and then what's fictionalized is our journalists, our American journalists, and others who go through these events.
Well, you've made a lot of enormous films, and I would think that the scale and the level of action in a lot of your films would kind of invite a pressure cooker situation on set. But this one was a completely different monster. I mean, there was a lot of pressure and on this set, wasn't there?
Well, we were in the actual locations where the war took place.
Yeah.
A year later, a lot of war-torn country, a few miles from the border where Russia was still occupying a couple of areas. Very emotional with the local people who had just seen the horrors of the war, and now they are playing extras in our film. Very challenging for the cast and crew to shoot in mountain villages that have no hotels and no restaurants, and we are sleeping in farmhouses and eating in somebody's kitchen. So it was challenging. There wasn't a major filmmaking culture in Georgia, so all the equipment and most of the crew was brought in from other countries all around. So it was challenging, and I was determined to make this feel big, but not by using Hollywood tools. So there's almost no CG in the movie, and it's really, we have very big scenes with thousands of people and dozens of tanks and helicopters and fighter jets, and they're all real. So coordinating that in foreign languages and all that, it was challenging, but that's what I love about filmmaking. I love to lead the team and make it happen. So it was enjoyable while it was challenging and it was dangerous.
Mm-hmm. I think I have time for one more question, and I have to ask you a movie geek question, because we're obsessed with film score on our show, and we've had the pleasure of welcoming Trevor onto the show previously, and I have to ask you, what do you think clicks between the two of you, because you guys have collaborated together for quite some time now?
It's interesting. Well, I guess we are both outsiders. He's South African. I'm Finnish. I love his music. I love his sensibilities. I love his rock and roll background. He's so un-Hollywood. He's just a real person and a real artist. And we treat each other with great respect. We read each other's thoughts and emotions, and when I describe something to him, what I feel the emotion in the scene is, he gets it, and he makes a little sample for me, and then I might say, hey, let's try a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and he's like, okay, I got it, and then he's always open to changes and new experiments, and I'm the same way, and we don't argue, we just feed each other with inspiration, and we just love each other as friends. So I'll tell you, it's like Trevor makes a lot of money making big Bruckheimer movies, and when he's making a movie like 5 Days of War with me, he's making a fraction of that money, but he's doing it because he loves it and because we are friends, and we will make many, many more movies together.